Welcome to Books on Point. South Africa's Survival Guide to Climate Change by Sipho and Sarah Wild rests on the idea that we could possibly survive a changing climate. Temperatures are already changing, sea levels are rising, and parts of South Africa are on their way to being uninhabitable. Life is already incredibly hard for many people, and nobody will be exempt from climate change. Circumstances are going to get a lot more difficult very soon, and we need a plan. Sipho joins us in studio for more. Thank you so much for your time. So let's talk about what prompted the idea to write the book.
So I've been an environment reporter for so many years, and a lot of the stories you end up doing are really depressing stories, right? Because people have bad lives in South Africa, and things are going to get worse if we don't do anything. But we often don't talk about what we can do about it, like solutions and that kind of thing. So the idea behind this was to say, yes, things are bad, they can get worse, but we can all be involved, we can all do something.
Yeah. What should our approach be when it comes to climate change? I mean, I think last week it dominated news headlines. There were certain protests and everybody was focusing on Greta.
So I think just that, like, there was research that came out earlier this month which said that 59% of South Africans don't even know what climate change is, right? And I think talking about it is a very, very important first step, because we don't talk about it. I mean, life is hectic in South Africa, right?
Yeah.
And a definite thing is talking about it and getting politicians to talk about it, because we have such really good plans in South Africa for dealing with climate change. We just don't put them into place. It's that old South African story. And if we talk about it and politicians start caring about it, then we'll start doing the things that we can do, which is really cool.
Yeah. When it comes to meeting your, either call them climate change targets, for lack of a better description, what is South Africa's sort of standpoint? How are we doing on that front? I can imagine, you know, we present a whole lot of reports to an international platform, so to speak. What do they look like?
So South Africa's basic plan is that by 2025, we reach the maximum amount of carbon emissions, and then we keep them still at like that level for 10 years, and then we go down. And that's basically tied to Eskom's power plants. So by 2025 to 2035, we start switching them off. So then our carbon emissions go down a lot. So we haven't done, I mean, to date, the single biggest thing we've done about reducing carbon emissions has been to destroy the economy. So when the economy collapsed, carbon emissions went down.
Right.
But in terms of government saying we're going to do stuff and actually doing stuff, we haven't done that.
International climate negotiations, do they work? I mean, there's a part of the book where you focus on them as well.
So yes, like it's very easy to be pessimistic about this, but if you think, like, we can't even get every country in the world to agree that we shouldn't use landmines. But we managed to get almost 200 countries to say, let's do this massively ambitious thing and pretty much change the world economy. That's huge, right? Like, it's a big deal to get the human race to agree on something and to get its leaders to do something.
So in the earlier part of the conversation, you mentioned that there's a lot happening in South Africa and the world, which at some point can be very depressing, and you go into a full-blown panic. Talk to me about the process and the approach, particularly for this book, and, you know, making it a survival guide as opposed to just having a book that's about climate change.
So I think most of the news we do is things are going to be so bad, right? And all of us, I mean, even, you know, I do this for a living, but you switch off and you're like, well, I know things are bad, right? What's the next step? So that was our thinking, was let's do the next step. Let's talk about what people can do, what communities can do, what governments can do, and with the idea of creating a conversation and giving every single person. So if you open the book and you're like, well, I don't have money, or I don't know, I can drive a Maserati, I have lots of money, this is what I can do. Like, we even said, I think that if you want to, you can pull pages out. And this is like the thing that you want to do. So like what to buy at the shops or what to buy in season, you can rip those pages out and use them.
Given that we've just come out of a drought, I mean, if you look at what happened in Cape Town a year or two ago, and what's going on in South Africa, what would you say, if you had to be a scenario planner based on the book that you've just put together, and probably even have a worst case scenario, best case scenario, what do those two worlds look like?
So in South Africa, the big climate change thing is water and rainfall. So we already live in a country without much water. So Gauteng, I mean, it makes no sense that we built Joburg here, because there are no rivers. So we've got to bring water from Lesotho and the Drakensberg to here, which means we've got to spend a lot of money, and thanks to corruption, basically, we've stopped investing in all that infrastructure. So in Gauteng, climate change looks like we run out of water.
Right.
Which means the farms in the Free State and Mpumalanga don't have water for irrigation, which means we have food problems. So worst case, it's all water.
Right.
So we have Cape Town, except if you live in the Highveld, you don't have an ocean to desalinate things. Your coastal cities, they can desalinate salt water and then have drinking water. So worst case, we run out of water, we don't have food. All of those really, really bad things. Best case is we have a different economy where, like at the moment, all your pollution comes from power stations, and they're built in Mpumalanga, they make people sick, they destroy communities. Whereas if you have renewable energy, you have jobs in the Northern Cape where there are no jobs, and even just that, like, communities no longer breathe in polluted air. So there's all sorts of ways that we've built this country that makes people sick, and you get rid of all those things, right, as a starting point. So it's a chance to make everyday lives better, but also, look after climate change.
All right, Sipho, thank you so much for your time. Well, our recommended book for the week is titled Your Inner Game by Matt Brown. Over the course of 4 years, Matt Brown has interviewed hundreds of local and international entrepreneurs and business experts for his podcast, The Matt Brown Show, and in the process has created a lexicon of business growth, startup and funding hacks that anyone can learn from and implement.